Welcome back, folks, to the technical update series on Get a Grip on Lighting. On today's show, we're doing a summary. I'm with Scott Costa, who's the editor of TEDmag.com and lighttedmag.com, and we're going to discuss our episode with Gabe Arnold and Kelly Gordon about the L Prize. But before we get into that, we got to tell you about the great folks. We got to give thanks and gratitude to the great folks at Cooper Lighting who are supporting all this work. Go to COOPERLIGHTING.com. That's Cooper Lighting. How's it going, Scott Costa?
Great, man. How are you? Thanks for doing this, by the way, with us at TED Magazine and on our social media and on our lighted webpage and everything. We're really enjoying watching the process and watching you stream these with us on all of these platforms at the same time. It's really a great opportunity. So thanks a ton for working with us on this.
Yeah, and
Your idea. We just kind of jumped on. It's awesome.
Yeah.
I can't tell you.
Well, also, I'd like to thank Gabe Arnold and the rest of the folks at PNNL for really, reaching out to the industry and getting this information out there and distributing in so many ways other than this as well. But just to get people updated and what they're up to and what they're doing is been really great for us. So, yeah, let's talk a little bit about the L Prize, Scott.
Yeah, I'm. You guys know me, and probably most folks who've met me at conferences or trade shows or events. I'm a competitive guy. So when you're going to talk about a competition, I'm always interested. And you guys were talking a lot about again, I think first of all, I think competition is good, and you were talking about how the high tide raises all boats, and I think competition raises all boats too. It's like, hey, what are they doing that? So but what I'll ask is this, just to kind of get things going, that fascinated me was the winners from the previous L Prize were not necessarily, and I don't want to say, again, let's not classify folks, but not necessarily I would call major manufacturers. In fact, there was somebody from completely on the outside that I can't remember who it was who had won.
Yeah.
Do you think that's where, I guess, the next wave of innovation is going to come from? It's not what I'll call the main characters, but it's sort of those innovative players who are sort of changing the rules for what they're hearing about people need.
Well, the lighting industry, within the lighting industry, you hear about network lighting controls and all the wonderful things that are possible with network lighting controls and how the lighting industry can lead that, potentially be the leaders of that revolution. There's a couple problems with that. The first problem is that HVAC contractors and their control systems are much more aggressively and widely used than lighting control systems are. And HVAC contractors are generally at the site working with the controls on a regular basis with the building managers and the service engineers and all this sort of stuff. Simply because it's not that HVAC is more important infrastructure than lighting. It's just HVAC is more than off and on. It has to be set to certain temperatures and stuff like that. So it lends itself to a higher level of control because people don't want to be too hot and they don't want to be too cold and they don't want to be heating and cooling empty spaces, right? And so you have this relationship between HVAC contractors and buildings, which is much firmer and deeper already than lighting. Lighting contractors go in, they change the lights, they're gone. That's how it works. Now, some buildings have routine lighting maintenance and others. So what you're going to see as the potentiality and the business case for this type of stuff continues to grow, you're going to see those outsiders pushing in to the lighting space. And I think the lighting industry should welcome them. I don't think there should be any defensiveness. What you're talking about, a blue sky situation. Most buildings don't have these types of controls. And so I think they should welcome them. And that's what the L Prize is doing. It's analyzing the results. It's accepting applications from non-lighting people, which they should. And I think it's wonderful. So to answer your question, I think you're going to see more of that. I think you're going to see, other large HVAC integrators begin to maybe create lighting systems or make an acquisition of a lighting company or one of these things and integrate them into their control systems. Yeah. So I think you're going to see more and more in that. And I think the L Prize will reward more and more of that integration. And they should.
And I think it gets us talking. It got you talking during the stream. You personally talking during the stream, which really stood out to me. And they had mentioned something, and I don't. I'm going to try and pull it up out of the memory bank as best I can. But they had mentioned something. You said, you know what they ought to do, and then you started on a Colligan rant, which is great. We don't mind that. But then you started on a rant what they ought to do, and it really reminded me of like when you go to events, like say you go to a lighting trade show or whatever. You go to the NAD Eastern Region Conference, which I know
Sure.
you've been at before. So you go to an event and whatever, you talk to people all day and that's great. And then you go to the bar afterward and you start really talking.
Hmm.
And that's where like that, I felt like I was in a bar with you and like a light bulb came on, you know what I mean? But it's like those guys have great ideas, great innovative things that can be done in lighting and trade shows and, trade associations or whatever. I felt like though sometimes those ideas get stuck. And I'm wondering if you feel the same way on the lighting side in terms of some guy sat in a bar after being at a show and said, you know what kind of light you know what kind of control I really want. You know what they should really do about circadian rhythm. You know what we should really do about dark sky. And then it kind of dies in the darkness of the bar when it's time to settle up. I mean, do you see that? Tell me how you feel about that. I feel like I've had great conversations in, again, bars in the evening.
Sure.
But they never really translate into fruition.
I think the problem you're identifying is that, and I know exactly what you're talking about. It's when you're sitting with, so you're not a practitioner, you're a journalist fundamentally.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And so you're accustomed to listening to people, right? Which is not common, actually. You know?
Right.
And so when some guy who's a practitioner, a field practitioner, right, starts saying, you know what, I love what these people are doing, but here's what would really be effective. Those are the kind of situations you're talking about. Here's what the customers want. It's like you were talking to a general, then you're talking to a field marshal, and now you're talking to a sergeant or a lieutenant or lieutenant, as Americans say. And when you're in that situation, when you get those different views of the situation, what tends to happen is that the person's view from the front lines is oftentimes a hell of a lot more realistic and more of what needs to happen right now. And if you move yourself back away from that, and this is why what PNNL does is so great. They actually get into the field and they deploy stuff and they monitor it and they see, right? And which is really what I like about what those guys do particularly. But when you get into those front lines, you start to meet the stakeholders, the practitioners, the people that are actually in the trenches of this every day. And I would say that the lighting industry does a bad job seeing them as stakeholders. They often talk about the stakeholders being consumers, manufacturers, people at the IES and all this sort of stuff. But really, most people that practice lighting or electrical or HVAC are not members of any association because they don't have time and they're too busy selling lighting or HVAC systems to the end users. And the industry, I talked to the, I'm not going to say any names because they don't have a chance to respond, right? But when I interview these people, it's very obvious to me that they haven't spoken to any frontline practitioners of whatever it is they're talking about. They're cooking up ideas, which are great. Like one of the ideas that comes out is the elimination of mercury. Well, I don't think that's our biggest priority right now. That's already happening on its own. In 10 or 15 years, there's going to be very few fluorescent lamps left and CFL lamps left and HID lamps. It's not a priority to put in any regulations and all that. And if they just spoke to people who worked in the field every day, they would realize that all the new installations are LED. Nobody puts fluorescent in anywhere. It never happens. And so slowly this is going to solve itself on its own. And so I think we need the industry groups, the regulators, to really see distributors, contractors, agents, these kinds of people in the field as the highest level of stakeholder group, not the one we forget about. They're actually the most important people to involve.
So I got a thought on that, but a question on that too. The question I have is, do you think that's moving at a solid enough pace to get those, again, to get what customers need, to get what we really need to solve our problems, to make lighting as magnificent as it could be? Do you think we're moving along fast enough? And if not, when do you think, or what do you think it's going to take to get us to that point?
Well, I mean, take sustainability, for example. In my opinion, and I love what P&L is doing.
Yeah.
I love what they're doing, and other people are commenting on this in the industry also. But Nailed's sustainability letter was the most thorough and accurate of anything I've seen about the situation. And that was a group of 5 lighting distributors that sat down for 2 one-hour meetings, and we recorded it, summarized it, put it into a letter, and off it went. And to me, very few responses to that letter. A couple manufacturers stepped up and responded to us, and that was great. But, nothing from the big players to say, hey, that's a great letter. Hey, maybe we should invite them on our panel or our committee or what, nothing like that. And so I'm not saying that this is something that is being done intentionally. My point is that there needs to be more respect for tradespeople. There needs to be more respect for practitioners of the lighting arts, people who actually sell equipment to customers, because that is where the rubber meets the road. And it doesn't matter if it's sustainability. It doesn't matter if it's darkness restoration and preservation. It doesn't matter if it's circadian or network lighting controls. The practitioners are the ones that know how it works and what the customers want to buy. And I'd really love it if the industry really embraced those people wholeheartedly. There's so many smart people in Nailed and in NALMCO, in AILA, and these other organizations that have careers of frontline practicing, selling stuff to the user, the customers. And I think as an industry, we could do a way better job inviting them to the table.
And that's what leads me to my comment also, and then I want you could respond to it also, which is, and again, not knocking the L Prize, which I think is, a great opportunity to really show off, innovative products. So I'm not knocking that at all. But I'm trying to think of the nicest way to put this without being a jackass. So hang in there with me for a second. let me put it this way. We don't make magazines or online tedmag.com stuff or lighted stuff or stories or whatever. I don't tell you to do podcasts based on, hey, Michael, I need you to do this podcast because I want to win a prize. Like, we do what our readers need or want to know, and that's just the way we go about the business. And if we win trophies, and there's some behind me here, if we win trophies, that's just great. Mm-hmm. And so should there be a contest that's judged by, again, not knocking the L Prize, should there be a contest that's judged by, like you were saying, those users, those, again, Nailed, whatever, that says, you guys just, it just gives the implication that you guys just made products because you thought they were important. And it turns out they really are. They're really great products and they should win a prize. As opposed to sometimes I feel like it's the other way around. Hey, we have the opportunity to win, $250,000, whatever, $350,000. Let's invent something so that we can put some money in our pockets. And again, I'm assuming most folks aren't doing that. I'm not knocking the L Prize on that. But I just wonder if turning it upside down, saying, based on the products that you made, you didn't know that there was a contest happening, but we judged them anyway and you win. Does that make sense?
It does. I understand what you're saying, that the panel of judges at the PNNL is a secret panel, and that's I don't have any issue with that.
And you sounded like you wanted to sneak on that a little bit. But
I would love to. I think it would just be fun to do it. You know what I mean? I think it would be fun. Right. Here's what I would say. I think the money that PNNL gets to do whatever they do is your tax dollars at work for good purposes. I think that, that's, but there's a limit to what bureaucracy can do, what government can do, right? Mm-hmm. And so, I don't know about prizes and all this, but I'll tell you this. An award from your peers is, from other people that do what you do, is usually more valuable to you. It's like in the NHL, they have the different awards, and the Players' Choice Award is probably the one that means the most to the recipient, right? The guy that the other players voted as being the best player or the hardest to play against, And so I think that those awards from your peers, Nail does a good job. We have 2 awards. We have the Paul Hafner Award for service in the lighting industry, and we have the Gary Root Award for just, being a badass in the lighting industry. It's just like, and we award those, and that goes to, it's a peer award, and people really appreciate that. But when it comes to the someone has to do something in this regard to motivate it. And because we don't have a centrally planned economy, okay, where the government can dictate things, it's good to, to the American economy, what's $250,000? I mean, and let's say the award costs, it's a $2 million chunk of the taxpayers' money that goes to this kinds of innovation. And, generally with these awards, maybe, something looks super exciting. It doesn't end up having practical importance in the field or whatever. But I think this has to be done. And I think P&L does a great job doing it. But I agree with you. I think there could be awards that, the IES does a great job with the progress report as well. Mm-hmm. They do a great job there. And that's the IES progress report is really coveted, because that's your peer group awarding you. And, I really feel like that's powerful. So there's a lot of awards. I know Randy, I know your competitor, Edison Report
Randy's
puts out awards. Yeah. I'm just going to say, he puts out awards that are very coveted. His Person of the Year award in the lighting industry. There's different kinds of things like that. But here's my final point on awards. And Scott's going to laugh. I never want to win awards. Okay? Because they're often the kiss of death. There's something about awards. You win an award, and that's what you get, sucker. You know what I mean? And I know for me personally and for my companies, I'd much rather get incremental progress towards our goals than outside validation. And listen, I know awards are fantastic and they motivate people and they're like a Gucci suit, and you can I think the best awards go to the adopters of the technology. New buildings, early adopters and stuff like that. I think those awards are really good. Sure. But for me, I often find that when I see people win awards, they're kind of a kiss of death. It's coming to the end of what they were doing that was great. And now they got the award, and I can shut it down now.
That's just it. And that's the challenge. I agree. And we celebrate our victories here at TED Magazine. And again, we do our projects, we do our magazine, we do our online stuff every day with the intention of who's our audience member, who's our reader, what do they need to know, and then the awards kind of come as a frosting on the cake kind of a thing. It's not really an intentional, hey, let's design this series of stories to win an award today. Let's design this new light because I want to win an award for it. So it's I think if you go about it the right way, and again, you have what I said at the beginning. You're just a competitive son of a gun like I am. It will all fall into place for you. That's the way I see it. I understand what you're saying about the kiss of death and the okay, I won already. I don't have to try anymore. I get that. I'm not trying to say that happens, and it does bring about what you were mentioned too about Randy Reed and doing those lifetime achievement. Those are people who dedicated literally decades to just making things better. And so they absolutely deserve those kinds of awards because, some of these guys have been in this 40, 50 years of just making everybody around them better, every product that they touch around them better. So I see what you're saying. I mean, those kinds of awards, they're not trying to win a Lifetime Achievement Award, but they certainly deserve it. I think if you live in that box, you're probably in a better place. So I'm happy for the L Prize. Yeah.
Yeah, and so we thank PNNL for the L Prize. Although, hey, we're just real talk here, folks. I think it's a great prize, what they do. It's a good segment of the industry to reward, and the government should do that to a certain extent, and they're doing a great job at PNNL. So we thank Gabe Arnold and all the folks at PNNL for sharing all their stuff with us. And I know that it's May 2023 is the deadline, I think, to get your application in, something like that.
They mentioned something about intent by January 1st or something.
Yes.
So you may want to look that up. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you have an interesting product and you're listening to this and you want to put that Gucci suit on, then go for it. Why not? Right? Win a couple $100,000. Why not?
Champagne toast.
That's right.
Toast. Yeah.
And hey, Cooper Lighting, I bet you got something hot you can throw in there, folks. What a great company. Go to cooperlighting.com. That's COOPERLIGHTING.com. And thanks to all the folks at PNNL and you, the listener, who's the most important person and the watcher. Bye for now.